Hey everyone, my name is Alexandra Botez, and I'm a woman FIDE master from Canada. Have you ever wondered if there's a great way to attack a castled king? Today, we're going to be learning about how to break down a castled king's defenses. In our first exercise, we see that Black has no weaknesses in his defense just yet. All of his pawns are on the 7th rank. Because of this, it's our job to try to somehow create a weakness in his defense. White starts by playing h6. h6 is a powerful move because we're threatening queen takes g7, checkmate. Poor Black has only one way of stopping this checkmate. He has to play g6. After he plays g6, we have now created our first weakness in Black's castled king. g7 is a very juicy weakness. We have to find a way to attack it one more time. We start by playing queen f6. After queen f6, we're threatening queen g7 checkmate, and there's no way for Black to stop. In our second position, we notice that once again, Black has all of his pawns on the 7th rank. He has a good, solid fortress. White decides to try to weaken Black's fortress by playing bishop h6. The idea behind bishop h6 is that we're threatening queen takes g7 checkmate. Black has one option here. He has to play g6. g6, first of all, is already allowing us to take his rook on f8, but more importantly, he's creating another weakness on g7. White once again has another move to attack g7. White plays queen d4. Queen d4 is threatening queen g7 checkmate. We might think at first that Black can stop the checkmate by pushing his pawn to f6. Unfortunately for Black, his pawn is pinned and he can't move it forward because our bishop would be attacking his king. It seems that once again, White has been able to break through the fortress and threaten a checkmate that Black can't stop. In the last position, Black has already helped us by creating weaknesses in his castled king. As we see here, his dark squares are already a big weakness. So how can we take advantage of it? White starts by playing queen h6, another powerful move by White, threatening queen g7 with checkmate. Black has two ways of responding to the threat on g7. He can play queen e5, and he could play f6. We already know that queen e5 is bad because Black doesn't want to give up his queen for just the bishop. So instead, Black decides to push f6. After playing f6, the pawn is no longer protecting g6. So White decides to take g6 with another strong attack. Queen takes g6 leaves the Black king with only two options. He can block the check with queen g7, or he could play king h8 and try to escape. If Black plays king h8, then White can play rook h3, threatening rook takes h5 check. If Black tries to block this with a queen by playing queen h7, then the rook takes on h5 and has a really nice pin with the Black king and queen. So instead of playing king h8, Black decides that he thinks the best move here is to play queen g7. The idea behind queen g7 is he gets to block the check. White responds by playing queen takes h5. Queen takes h5 controls all of the squares where the Black king could have possibly escaped. It not only controls all of the squares where the king could have escaped, but it also threatens rook g3. Rook g3, of course, which would pin the queen against the king, and Black would have enough material to win the position. Unfortunately for Black, one of his best options is just trying to bring the knight closer to the king for defense, because there's no way for him to stop rook g3, pinning the queen against the king, and giving White enough material to have a clear win. What we learned today is that when a king castles, he creates a defensive fortress to keep himself safe from enemy attack. As we saw in the examples, The king is always the most safe when his pawns are on the 7th rank. So if you're trying to attack the enemy king, it might be a good idea to try to create some weaknesses in his pawn defense. Thanks, and hope to see you next time.